Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Report. It's time for the big picture, which is my main takeaways from Texas Tech head coach Matt Wells' game week press conference on Monday morning. So Texas Tech, fresh off the 34-27 victory over West Virginia, a much needed win for the program and head coach Matt Wells. But it doesn't get any easier as Oklahoma comes to town. Halloween night, 7 p.m. Should be a really interesting matchup. So man, there was a lot to talk about in the game week press conference from Coach Wells, and I think the first thing, the biggest takeaway was the injury update. He opened with that, with just some updates, and then there were some follow-ups that I had, and at least one or two of the other reporters had. But bottom line is, here's some good news for you: Sir Roderick Thompson and Xavier White, who both left the game late against West Virginia. With injuries, it appears that they are probable. That's what Coach Wells called it. Is that it doesn't appear they're injured. It appears they're hurt, and he's hopeful that they'll be able to play against Oklahoma. So that's good news. Then there are several receivers out, who he said he believes, has a good chance. Several of them have a good chance of playing against Oklahoma. He said they need to reevaluate. They need to see these guys, and we're talking about big time players for Texas Tech. Keyshawn Carter, who early on in the season established himself as one of the best players, certainly on the team, and bang for my buck, one of the best in the Big 12 overall. Was really coming into his own. So hopefully he can return hit the ground running. McLean Mannix, we still haven't seen him this year, and Keyshawn's injury has been an elbow. Mannix is a back. And then Dalton Rigdon was in the concussion protocol, and so I think they were hopeful that he was going to be able to play last week, but you can't mess around with concussions. You never really know. So the hope is that he will be okay to return and be able to play Saturday against Oklahoma. So those were the big ones. Seth Collins, who's the guy just his whole career has been hurt. He's out for the season with some kind of shoulder fracture that he suffered against Iowa State. So Coach Wells said he is hopeful, or he is expected to try and come back for another season. Seth Collins, so that's one thing. And I asked about TJ Vasher because nothing's really been said. I just said, with it being the COVID era, they're not going to violate anything. And even if I knew that somebody was certainly out for COVID, I wouldn't, share that. I honestly don't know exactly why Vasher's out, but he is out, and Coach Wells confirmed at least that he doesn't expect it to be anything that's going to keep Vasher out for a long period of time. Now, whether he plays against Oklahoma or not, I'm not sure, but it is good news that Vasher could possibly or should return in the near future. So those are the updates I have on the injury front right now. I think those are the main ones that people want to know about. So that was a big takeaway for me. Another big takeaway was, I asked Coach Wells about, the lack of penalties or the improvement in penalties and in the tackling department. Those are two basic tenets of football, is being able to tackle well and, not shooting yourself in the foot with penalties. And Tech's done a really good job. They've improved in both those areas. I mean, it's tangible. In penalties, you could just see how many are called and all, it's a fact. And in tackling, I think anybody who's watched Texas Tech football, over the last, let's say, 10 years, you could say, that they are better at tackling under Coach Wells. And he said that was something that he heard coming in. He said there was some truth to that. He said some of it was maybe exaggerated a little bit, but that, Tech had trouble in those two areas. So there was a point of emphasis, he believes, in being a good tackling team. And his big thing is, you're going to get penalties, between the whistles, but don't get any preseason penalties or pre-snap penalties. What you're talking about there is like false starts, jumping off sides, that kind of thing. Don't do that. And then don't get any, personal foul penalties after the whistle. Wells said that since they've been here, and this is 12 games last year and then 5 games this year, so through 17 games, Tech has only had one post-whistle personal foul penalty. That was way back in the Arizona game, and he actually said he thought that was a bad call. So that's how good they've been and how disciplined they've been in that area, where it seems like, and it wasn't just like the Kingsbury era. I mean, it was the Leach era, going back to then. It always seemed like, Tech was good for some post-whistle, some post-play, personal fouls, some dumb penalties. And just obviously it hasn't been the case under Will. So that's a huge improvement. When you're talking about these close games, I mean, every one of that bit matters, and certainly tackling is a really important part of the sport. He says they work on it during the week. It's a major emphasis. He says they're physical, but they don't actually go all the way to the ground, because you got to have a nice balance between maintaining that physicality, being a good tackling team, but also being fresh and not hurt. You're in the midpoint of the season. You're not trying to get guys hurt in practice. So I thought all those were really good little tidbits on just how they've improved with penalties and tackling, and how that has been a major point of emphasis. And you can tell, with this new coach, with this coaching staff. Another big thing for me was, I noticed in the win over West Virginia, Texas Tech did a really good job of sustaining drives. Now they're known, they're a tempo team. They don't care if it's one or two, play drives, but they actually had several sustained drives, like I think a 13-play drive, a 9-play drive, a couple of 8-play drives, and they were basically even in the time of possession with West Virginia, who's they're primarily a running team, really. So I think that played a major role in the defense remaining fresh late in the game. And I asked Coach Wells about that, and he said, yes, absolutely. Later on, he pointed out that, hey, if they score fast, oh well, as long as they score points. But they can't go 3 and out. They did have some 3 and outs, but that the sustained drives helped the defense, which made the play. Offense made some plays, obviously, too. It was a total team win. But the defense really stepped up and got several stops in a row in the fourth quarter, including the final stop, which proved to be the difference in the game. And the fact that they weren't on the field as much as they were, like, say, for a wild, other side of the ledger example was Iowa State, where it seemed like the defense was on the field for almost the entire game. So even teams with a lot of depth can't stay on the field, can't have their defense on the field all game and expect them to be able to make those plays late in the game on a consistent basis. So that's something to watch, is are they able to move the chains? Are they able to basically not have 3 and outs, keep the defense fresh? So that helps the team overall, get the W, which is what it's all about. And then finally, and this was kind of an off-the-cuff question for me, it's something we're dealing with, or living with here in Lubbock, is that it's freezing, and it's sleeting, and it's rainy, and there's going to be snow this week. All that, it's cold. It's I think last I saw it was in the 20s. So I asked Coach Wells, I said, look, what's your philosophy? Are y'all going to be in the indoor, or are you going to practice outside? And he said on Mondays they're basically in the indoor anyways, but that philosophically, the forecast calls for the next 2 days to be cold. He said if it's the same Tuesday and Wednesday, he's not trying to make these guys manly or make them tough, by practicing outside. He said he believes that toughness is really built in the off season. It's like practicing twice in the cold is going to all of a sudden make these guys tough, or that they need to prove anything to him. He'd rather have quality practices in the indoor. So if it's cold and sleeting and snowing like it has been here in Lubbock, if it continues this week as expected, as the forecast calls for, then they'll be in the indoors. That being said, I thought there was a lot of information in this press conference. I also have notes posted on Inside the Red Raiders, some notes and quotes. Mighty Joe Yeager will have some notes and quotes from the coordinators, their press conference as well. So with that, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time.